10 of them have been either killed or so seriously hurt that they can't go back to doing that job over the past 5 years. So,
Like 10 of 1,000 in 5 years.
yeah,
Pretty good.
that's pretty good actually. You know, that's because they've got such good training. Okay, more output decisions. One of the things we're really concerned with is advancement. When you think of, you know, if your company is promoting, would you leave? Probably not. You know, so it's very important to the Navy to make sure we've got good, fair advancement. Guys are out there, we've got sailors out there doing these hard missions on the plane, we call it the pointy tip of the spear. And you're in the desert, 130-degree heat. I'll tell you what, you don't want to hear that you don't get advanced because, you know, there's some goofy HR problem, we didn't get the systems right back here in Millington. You know, that just doesn't cut it. So we are very closely watching advancement goals and trying to make sure that they meet expectations of the sailors and expectations of the Navy, so that we don't have this large swinging variance from year to year where one year we advance 5%, the next year we advance 50%. We'd like to keep it somewhere in, you know, the 20-25% range, depending on the pay grade. But those EOD guys, they are so short of people right now. It's a hard mission to recruit people into. They've got a 50% advancement to chief. Okay, chief is a very high pay grade in the enlisted community. It's E7, and it's a big deal to be chief. So, but for every 2 guys, if you're going to advance one of them to chief, those are great advancement rates. The general advancement rate for those to E7 is probably in the 15% range. Okay, re-enlistment and retention goals. As I said earlier, how many people we get to re-enlist, how many people we retain, is highly critical to this entire supply chain, to make sure that we've got all these communities managed along that EPA curve throughout the length of their career. We use these bonuses. The EOD guys get 90 grand to re-enlist for 4 to 6 more years. SEALs, SWICs, special warfare guys, they all get 90 grand and nuclear power jobs. High-year tenure windows. High-year tenure is essentially a term that we use to say, okay, you've made it 8 years into your Navy career and you haven't advanced past E4. There's either something wrong with the system because we messed it up, or you're not cut out to be a Navy sailor. We want sharp, motivated, hard-working people in the United States Navy. If they don't make it to the next pay grade on that 8-year point, that's our first cutoff. That's high-year tenure, they're gone. And the next cutoff is at 14 years from E5 to E6. And then the next cutoff is at 20 years from E6 to E7. If they don't make the next pay grade, then they get thanked for their service and shown the door. It's another policy tool, essentially, for us as managers to make sure that we've got a good force, we don't have a lot of dead wood sitting around and taking up space, and make sure that we've got the right people to get the job done. Conversion to recalls. I was essentially a recall. I was out flying for U.S. Airways, and I was also flying in a reserve squad in Jacksonville, Florida. And my CEO came up one day, and he knew I wasn't real happy with the airlines. I was bored out of my mind. It's kind of like flying a bus, you know, from place to place. And he came up to me and said, "Hey, they're looking for guys to fly the C-130." That's awesome because it's like I said, if you've seen a C-130, it's a gigantic 4-engine propeller aircraft. And we could, you know, my maximum takeoff weight was 175,000 pounds. So, you know, when you're rolling down the runway, it's something like that, with all 4 engines blasting. It's a great feeling when you lift off. Anyway, I was recalled back in, and but we also convert people from one rating to another. We've got overpayment ratings. We say, hey, here's an opportunity. We'll give you a bonus to convert. We'll give you the training, and we will. You'll have a great career in this other rating because you'll advance faster. So we have a lot of conversions from overman ratings to underman ratings, and trying to make that keep those stand flaps on the LOS curve, keep them all matched up with the ether curve. Performance serve, I talked about that a little bit. It's essentially people at their first re-enlistment point. They're not cutting it, and we.
So is that with your higher senior windows?
No, this isn't the 4-year point. This starts at the 8-year point. This PTS, you may be in an undermanned rating, but we got the ability to dial that PTS. You know, it's not really a valve, but we call it a valve. So we dial that PTS valve down just a little bit, even though we're undermanned, because we know that there are people out there that are just, they're showing up for a paycheck. And we don't want people to just show up for a paycheck. So we try and, you know, just 1 or 2 a month, just to make sure that, and if they're really serious about staying in, get with their Master Chief and get with their Master Chief Petty Officer. We'll work something out. If it's a good sailor that we want to keep, the system makes it very clear that they're a good sailor that we want to keep. We also give them the opportunity at that PTS point to convert to other ratings that are undermanned. Okay, constraints. Always have funding constraints, right? Anybody have any funding constraints in your life? Yeah, it's a big one. Every year, it always seems to happen, you know, the fiscal year for the military is October 1st to September 30th. And every year, in about August, you get a call from the money guys up in D.C. and they say, we just cut last year with $800 million. So what we do becomes very important. Remember that 1% equals 250 million? It becomes very important that we get this right quickly to help alleviate some of these funding cuts that are out there. We have a lot of recruiting constraints. You know, it's a whole lot easier to recruit a cook than it is a nuclear power guy or a SEAL team guy, a special warfare person. It's just the way that it is. So we've got all those various bonuses that help us meet the recruiting mission. And there's a very high ASVAB score for these guys. That's that IQ score. There's a very low ASVAB score for these guys. Attrition, depending on the rating, as people go through the pipeline, the training pipeline, the attrition could be anywhere from 10 to 80% in the first year. SEALs, we wash out about 80% of their guys. And it's just the nature of the training. Very, very physical, very mentally challenging, physically challenging. And you gotta have supermen in those programs that really have their act together. Otherwise, you won't have enough people popping out on the other pipeline, or the end of the pipeline. Retention, about 50% of the people that we recruited into the Navy, that 4-year point when they have to make a decision, about 50% of them leave. For SEALs, nuclear power guys, and those EOD guys that I was talking about earlier, 80 to 90% of them stay. A lot of that has to do with the bonuses that we pay. Yes, sir.
So what's the life expectancy of that job? That's not actually what I mean, but how long are you good at being a SEAL versus your age?
Well, it's interesting because most of us come in, I came in through the Rocky program at the University of Florida. Nobody's gonna shoot me. Go Gators. Good. Anyway, we all come in at about the same point, and we essentially run a 30-year career out from age 20, roughly. By age 50, you're pretty much physically done.
Right.
I mean, most of us are still, we have very strict physical fitness requirements. I have to take a flight physical every year, even though that I'm not flying right now. I still get flight pay. It's kind of retainer pay because of the skills that I have. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, but the other part of that is with your HYT thing. Bear with me here, I'm trying to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. Let's say that you're an E7 SEAL sniper, and you are the Lee Harvey Oswald of SEAL snipers. You can hit anything, period. Now, from what I understand about what you said, if you don't go up in pay, you get fired.
Not as an E7 or above.
Okay, you're an E2, and that's, I mean, I don't understand, if you're the king of the SEAL snipers, how you advance.
Remember the LOS curve?
Sure.
Those particular ratings are very much undermanned. We didn't have, like I said, we developed that methodology that way. That's a very granular approach to managing populations of people. We only developed that a couple of years ago. Now we've got much closer control of what's the attrition in the pipeline. We know it's 80%. We used to think, oh, maybe it's 20 or 30%. We didn't know. Okay? What's important is that they're way undermanned. And when they're way undermanned, their guys are advancing very quickly. High-year tenure doesn't really apply to that. A lot of those policies that I had up there earlier, they really don't apply to the SEAL. They do, technically. But, I guess you could have a situation where a SEAL gets busted. He's an E7 and he gets busted to E1. And, for doing something bad. And, then he'd be higher tenured out. He came up, I've seen that happen. I actually had to do that to a couple of guys where they had been busted, for whatever reason. They came right up on the higher tenure gate. And it was the nature, you gotta, they're humans. So you have to take all that into consideration. I read all the full case report and everything else. And you just have to make a decision. I mean, if it's something really bad, you just don't want that guy in your Navy, then he's gone. But, there were cases where I let people stay because the nature of their infraction wasn't so serious. Yeah, they may have been busted down to the higher tenure point, but it wasn't so serious that they couldn't recover from it. That they couldn't get their act together and not do that kind of thing again. You know what I mean? So you just have to, we try and take those things into account. Is that?
More or less.
Diversity. One of the things that's very important to the entire Navy, it's important in our society that we have a diverse workforce. And we don't have just a bunch of supermen out there. We need people, we need men, we need women, we need every race under the sun. And what we try and do is the U.S. Census Bureau comes out with future demographics, or what does the U.S. population, what do they think the U.S. population is going to look like in 10 or 20 years? And we try to shape the diversity of the Navy's workforce to meet those future demographics so that the people who are in the Navy, they feel, how did you feel when you were in the Navy about diversity and all that?
And there's a lot of different people, from different areas. I don't know.
It's a very broad, it's just very American. After being in the Canadian Air Force for a couple of years on loan to them, and then being, flying all over the world, interacted with a lot of different militaries. We have a good program going. It's, I don't know, I'm just very proud of it. So. Education. Right now, we require a minimum of a high school diploma for people to enlist in the Navy. And we've also got a brand new program where the men to promote to E8, they've got to have at least an associate's degree or higher. So that is a meeting with a little bit of consternation on the part of the guys that are E7s trying to promote the E8, but it's in their best interest, as I think everybody here would agree.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Officers, where do they come in as, like an E5 or?
Yeah, it depends. Like when I first came in, I got my scholarship and everything. I mean, I guess we were all E1s really, because we were very basic guys. But then when you graduate, the day I graduated, I was commissioned, and it's a presidential commission. So I was commissioned as an 01, and the range goes from 01 to 010, and I'm an 05 now.
So your E grade is really already listed.
Yeah, the
E
E
is enlisted, and O is officer. But,
So if you graduate, if you're in the Navy, or if you're a college graduate and you join the Navy, are you automatically an officer?
well, no, you've got to, and I've seen people do this. I used to run a reserve center, and 1,800 reservists had worked on it. And I saw guys with PhDs come in, talk to the recruiter, and they would enlist them because they needed enlisted folks. They would enlist them to get your attention real quick. Okay, listen up. So they would enlist them, and they were fully qualified to be officers. They were fully qualified to be scientists for the Navy, and they enlisted them. Anyway, I got one of them first. It was just ridiculous. The guy had a PhD in physics. And,
So did he get out of the Navy, or?
no, we commissioned. So, any other questions? Okay, inventory visibility tools. I was talking to you earlier about that, right? Think so? Anyway, all this benchmarking that we did with IBM and FedEx and all the various companies out there, it became real apparent that the main thing is to have inventory visibility. If you don't have visibility, the inventory supply chain, you're not doing supply chain management. We had, when I got started in this thing, we had 20 different legacy IT systems that required 20 different usernames, 20 different passwords, and 20 different navigation techniques to get your answer out. So if I wanted an answer for one thing, you had to go log into this system, go drill down and dig it out of there, put it in the right format and everything, and then go into another system and get the piece that was right next to it in the supply chain. Pull that information out, put it in an Excel spreadsheet, so I could start to build a picture of what was going on in the supply chain. Today, we have advanced, I'm happy to say, we've advanced to a web-based system where we've got visibility of about 95% of the supply chain on a real-time basis. A day-to-day snapshot of everybody that's in training, everybody that's on active duty. And that was no small thing we did there. It's allowed us to have a lot more granular look. So when things start to go out of control, we start getting too many people coming into a pipeline compared to the schools that we've got available, we can start to take corrective action and funnel them off in another direction. The other thing that was happening, and it still is to a great degree, it's called stovepipe efficiencies, or stovepipe efficiencies. We have the training section of the Navy. They'd be out trying to make their processes as efficient as they possibly could, because every dollar that they saved on that, they could use it on something else, right? So their efficiencies, unknowingly to them, their efficiencies sometimes would be hurting the fleet. They'd be saying, well, we don't need all these schools. We don't have any students coming through here right now. Well, they didn't know that there were thousands of students programmed and scheduled to come through because they didn't have visibility on the supply chain. They would close schoolhouses down and make decisions that were very efficient for them, but suboptimal across the supply chain. So that's one of our main focuses right now in the modeling that I'm doing with Dr. Racer, is trying to integrate, tie all these various efficiencies together so that we have optimal efficiency across the whole supply chain. This is just kind of a quick depiction of the Navy's street to fleet supply chain. And on the left-hand side, you see where we're trying to determine what is the requirement. And building that going letter, 200 different ratings, by mail, by female, how many people are we going to bring into the U.S. Navy? And recruiting's got a tough mission. They got to go out there and find 40,000 high school students or college students that want to enlist, because the educational benefits for college students are tremendous in the Navy. But they're going to go out there and find all these kids every single year and bring them in and try and match up. Don't give us 40,000 cooks. We want 1,000 SEALs. We want 1,000 or 2,000 nuclear power guys, and we want so many EOD guys, et cetera, et cetera. INSTIC is the Navy Schools Training Command. Yes, sir.
Are you saying that you want 1,000 SEALs or you want 1,000 nuclear sub people? Is that the amount of people that you want to go into school for that, or is that the amount of people that you want to come out of school for that?
Exactly. Those are great questions. That is the amount that we want to come into school. On the left-hand side of the pipeline of the supply chain, we need, for SEAL, it's, I think the number is about 1,400 SEALs that we recruit to bring in the left side of the supply chain, and out of that we get 250 SEALs a year.
So what about the remaining 1,200 or 1,150?
Those folks get, under the classification, reclassification variable, they get reclassified to other ratings. You can't get into the SEAL program unless you've got very high IQ scores and outstanding physical characteristics. So they are very much great candidates for aircrew, great candidates for EOD, for all types of different other special warfare jobs that we've got in the Navy. So out of that, those extra 1,200 people roughly that aren't making it through the pipeline, they get funneled off into other ratings and to meet the Navy's mission. But that's a great question, because so what happens?